Here we have another word problem. We're just going to keep calm and think, are we plugging into the original because we don't see the word change? Are we plugging into the slope because we see average change between 2 years? Or are we plugging into the derivative because we're asked about change at 1 instant or 1 year? So we have the number of people who shop Cyber Monday online grows as the number of internet users grows. So the more people that use the internet, the more people that are shopping online. So this is modeled by this P of X. And this is where x is measured in years, with x equals 0 corresponding to the beginning of 2005. So I know my input, my x, is measured in years, and I don't see where it says what p is measuring. Is it measuring the number of people? I'm not sure until I read this first part. How many online buyers as a percent of internet users? So p is actually standing for percent for this one. Be careful, it's not always percent. But for some reason, once we do percent, everybody's like, oh, percent every unit. So just remember this one is, but it's not always. So we want how many online buyers as a percent of internet users were there at the beginning of 2012. So do we see the word change here? It says how many as a percent in the beginning of 2012. It doesn't say how fast is it changing between 2010 and 2012 or just at 2012. I don't see anything about increasing, decreasing, or any change words in this. So we're just plugging into the original. What percent of people shopped on Cyber Monday in 2012? So what x value is that? X equals 0 corresponds to 2005. I'm getting that from there. 2005 is 0, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. So x equals 7. It's not bad when it starts at 0. You can easily do the subtraction, but sometimes when it starts and it says like x equals 1 is 2005, that's when we get confused. And we'll see that in the next example, that it can get kind of confusing. And that's why I just always count on my fingers. So x equals 7. We're just plugging into the original. We're plugging into the original means that there's only 1 unit. Rate of change would be 2 units, but just plugging into the original is 1 unit. And I'm replacing the one place where there's an x with what it is, which is 7. So 38 in parentheses 7 to the 0.21, what you should get is that there was 57.18% of users. So it says internet users shopped on Cyber Monday. Kind of a longer unit. I'm just going to interpret it in this first one. So 57.18% of internet users shopped on Cyber Monday in 2012. And let's see what happens after that. What do we have in here? We have what was the average rate of change in the number of online buyers as a percent of internet users between 2005 and 2012. So we're talking about 2 years. 2005 is said to be, x is 0, not t for this one. X equals 0 for 2005, and we just found that x equals 7 for 2012. And we want to find the average rate of change between these 2 years. So should we use the derivative or the slope formula? Average rate of change is always the slope formula. So I'm going to do, my interval is 0 to 7, so I'm going to say p of 7, find the y value for 7, minus p of 0, the y value when we plug in 0, over 7 minus 0. So we need to plug in and find the y values. The nice part about this is we already found p of 7 in part A, so it kind of led into this nicely. P of 7, the y value when you plug in 7, was 57.18. Minus, now I need to find the y value when I plug in 0. So I'm just going back to the original function and plugging in 0 for x. So to have 38 times 0 to the 0.21. But 0 to any power is 0, times 38 is going to say 0. Cyber Monday was not a thing in 2005, I guess. 0% of people shopped on it. Maybe there weren't any deals on Cyber Monday yet. Divided by 7 minus 0 is 7. So we're going to find the average rate of change by taking the difference in y's over difference in x's. So we're going to get 57.18 over 7. So when we subtract 0, it just stays 57.18. And what I get is about 8.17 what? It's an average rate of change, so it's going to have 2 units. It's going to have this output unit. What were these measuring? 57.18. That was percent of users that shopped on Cyber Monday, percent of internet users that shopped per, what was the denominator measuring? It was per year. So the average rate of change, since it was positive, it was increasing. So the number or percent of people that shopped on Cyber Monday was going up by about 8% per year between 2005 and 2012. And we don't have any interpretation on test 1, but I'm just trying to give you a preview. Positive means it's increasing by about 8% of users per year between 2005 and 2012. That's what we just found. What I'm looking for on test 1 is mostly just knowing your units so far. And then we'll get into the point where we're like, oh, okay, we can write a full sentence about this now on test 2. The next piece says, how fast was the number of online buyers as a percent of internet users changing at the beginning of 2012? Ooh, so we see the word changing, but in just 1 year. So this is going to be instantaneous change, which means we're going to use the derivative. Instead of change on average between 2 years, where it's the slope, we're going to do change in just 1 instant. And it might be close to this, and it might be kind of far off, because that's a big interval. We were going from 0 to 7 before. If we were going from like 6 to 7, and that was our answer here, these would probably match. That's the idea where we said if you talk about how fast you were driving between 0 and 2 hours, you don't really know much about your instant speed, but if you make the interval smaller, it'll estimate it better. So we're going to keep in mind that this answer might not be close to this answer because this is a big interval and this is just change at that 1 instant in 2012. What happened in 2012? So I'm going to take the derivative. So let's rewrite this function down here because I know it's hard to see on my screen compared to your printout. So 38x to the 0.21 is what we want to take the derivative of. So we're going to call it p prime of x. And this one's a nice derivative compared to the last ones. We just need to bring down the power, subtract 1 for the new power. So I'm going to keep my constant multiple 38, and we're going to bring down the 0.21 and raise x to the what? What's 0.21 minus 1? That's going to be negative 0.79. And you might need your calculator for that. And that's fine. One thing you could do is you could multiply these together. If you have a scientific calculator, I would. If you have a graphing calculator, you probably don't have to bother. But I'll multiply them together just for good measure. I'm kind of switching back and forth between multiplying them together, not because it's totally your preference, whatever your calculator is capable of. 38 times 0.21 is 7.98 though. X to the negative 0.79. And since we're looking at 2012, we want to use this instantaneous change, that derivative, to plug in p prime of 7. So you're going to do 7.98 times 7 to the negative 0.79. Or you can plug it up here, 38 times 0.21 times 7 to the negative 0.79, whichever is best for you. So we're going to get about 1.72. And that's 1.72 what? It's a rate of change, so it's going to be 2 units. It's going to be percent of users per year. Which makes sense to me. We were already at 57% of users shopping on Cyber Monday in 2012. There was a sharp increase when it first came out between 2005 and 2012. It was growing by like 8% per year. And then there's already almost 60% of the population shopping, so we can't keep growing by like 50% because then we'll be over 100% of the population, which doesn't make sense. So we're at 57%, and then the rate of change is expected to increase by about 2% of users that year.